Like,
I
yeah,
was here the whole time.
you were. Well, those my lovely neighbors who came out to join me outside, I do agree it was beautiful. Um, they're with some kind of racing group, so like okay, car
Mhm.
racing. So like the bit. So we'll let them have the outside, and we'll keep going with writing. So this is
Yes.
where we left off. We were talking about the third grade mind design essay draft template blueprint. And so what we devised for South Carolina educators was to have the opening be where the characters and the setting are described, then to come up with two moments, because we do have to have moments. We have to have action in stories always, but we don't want too much action, right? We want those pauses, we want those elaborations to come in, and that's where you can see both the dialogue and the character description or thought are underneath those moments to help students really make those moments come alive. So that first long box with transition, moment, dialogue, and character description or thought would become one body paragraph, and then we repeat it for a second one. And then the last part, the closing, is where we want to tell what the character learned or what they'll never forget. And these are just, we're just basically helicoptering into the richness of writing with design and giving just one way to put together a narrative. So this is by no means the only way that we teach narrative or even all the parts of what we do to teach narrative, but it's certainly a helpful step and little section of what we do to make this something that students and teachers could take from our quick session and give it a go and give it a try.
Well, and this really gives, like we were talking about earlier, parameters. And in narrative writing, especially in third and fourth grade, those kids need a
You
step by
do.
step, do this, and then you do this, and then you do this. Because except for that one really creative kid in your class that sits at home and writes stories every night, most of them are going to feel outrageously overwhelmed by a narrative writing prompt. So
Right.
this gives them their blueprint, and that is exactly what they need.
Yeah. I love it. So we have a few student samples that are embedded in here, and when you access these slides, you'll be able to hear the students read their story. So this is sweet little Luna's writing, and what we have students do again is to choose a different creature who helps Skelly, and so she chose a spider. So hey, tarantula, specifically tarantula, not just a spider, can you help me? And then it goes into about the number of legs and even that, oh, Skelly, she's not going to like, or he's not going to like the bugs versus the candy. So super cute little writing here that Luna did. And so we have more. We've got a couple more student samples for you to take a look at and see, and just the richness of students really getting into the idea of taking on a different creature who could come along. And so it's basically like a lost page, right? A lost page to the story that students got to add into it. All right, one more there. All of them
It's
are
so
different, but
sweet.
they
It's so sweet to listen to these kids read too. Like, they just have the sweetest little voices, and they're just so animated, and they're telling their story.
I know it is the best. Okay, so then we move on to our fifth through eighth grade because remember, argumentative could be fifth through eighth. Informational was only an option for seventh and eighth. So what we have here are two articles. They are basically a pro and a con about artificial bones. So we stayed with the theme of bones here, and we just made it more appropriate in terms of the complexity for our fifth through eighth grade students. So the first article, replacing nature is risky, is very much saying what are the risks and what are the drawbacks of using artificial bone, versus the second one is very much talking about, hey, this is incredible, what amazing advancements we have in science. So these articles are accessible for you when you go into these slides here. You'll be able to click on the X-ray here for the articles, and it's identical for the argumentative prompt, which is on the next slide, or where was it? There it is. I went in reverse order. So here's the
Yeah.
argumentative prompt. Click on the skeleton, go to the
So
informational prompt.
cute. My handsome skeleton guy.
I love the pose.
Yeah.
It's very J.C. Penney photo studio. So
It is. It is. He
yes,
just needs some glamour shots done. He needs to be like
exactly.
this. He
Hmm.
needs to be like this, laying on the ground.
Yes. Hmm.
That's funny.
So this was the prompt, and I'm kind of blocking it a smidge here, but we are with our camera. But let me see if I can grab it and read it from here. So
Lewis.
advances in science now allow for artificial bones and implants to replace damaged bones. Some believe this is a great step for medicine, while others worry it may have drawbacks. Write an argumentative essay explaining your viewpoint. Are artificial bones a positive development for human health or not? Use evidence, reasons, and address another perspective. So that very clearly they're taking a side. And then in the informational prompt, the students instead had to, if you look at this part, explain how artificial bones have changed people's lives and what possible risks they bring. That's it. They're just supposed to explain, tell the pros and cons. Don't take a side, represent both sides. And so I love that stretch for students with informational writing is to read articles that are more biased one way or another and then report factually about it. That's really helping them understand what the difference is between argumentative and informational, and helps bring such clarity to students. Because let's face it, if they don't get the prompt in terms of they don't understand it, they don't know what type of writing they're supposed to do, even if they have the best writing in the class or in the state, if it's off prompt, it's a big old
Yes,
zero.
I know. I was actually great. Part of what we do at Writing with Design is we do have a grading service, and I was grading some middle school argumentative essays, and there were some really good writing that the kids just totally went completely informational, even though the prompt was argumentative. Like they didn't take a side. And so, like in isolation, those writing pieces were so good and could have scored really high. But because they're not writing on prompt, it's a big
Right.
because that's the big piece there is the prompt. Like, did they address the prompt?
Right.
So your
Exactly.
writing can be phenomenal, but if you're not, hitting that prompt, you'll be in big trouble.
Yeah, exactly. So we talked a lot about about paraphrasing and summarizing strategies in this session because we wanted to set up teachers to be successful with getting students to understand what they needed to do to bring in evidence. So Tabitha, do you want to take this slide?
Yes. Oh, this is like one of your favorite things to talk about. But,
Mhm.
and we have talked about this when we did our paraphrasing and summarizing, but this is just a really great visual to use with your students because those words, paraphrasing and summarizing, just you kind of say those to kids and their eyes kind of glaze over. They're like, I don't really understand. But when you put it like this, right? Like paraphrasing is taking flour, sugar, eggs, and butter and making cake. Or at my house, we make cupcakes, but
True.
cake. Taking a fruit platter and turning it into an edible arrangement, taking a pile of laundry and, turning it into folded clothes. So you're taking the pieces that you already have and you're turning it in to something else.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the fruit platter, right? I love the idea of the edible arrangement. We've all received one of those or know someone who has, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing as a fruit platter, but it just looks different. And
Yeah.
then that pile of laundry is a paraphrase when we fold it. So in the presentation, these will animate and pop up. I'm a little bit bummed that it's not doing it here, but I know we've gone over these with our paraphrasing strategies when we did that as a training on the write-up. So we did that for paraphrasing, just the three. We know there's more slides to this, but we just gave kind of a little quick preview. And then for summarizing too, a cake shrinking to a cupcake, a fruit platter shrinking to a fruit bowl. So just getting students and teachers to just understand paraphrasing and summarizing are all around us. We do this daily in different fun and kind of just living ways. It's not just an academic skill. And I think that that's so helpful for students and teachers to understand.
Yes.
So when we got into the actual strategies, we focused in on 3, and there are a total of 8, but we just didn't have the time. Again, I can't even believe that still that we finished in 45 minutes with teachers and principals too, but we did, and we talked about these 3. So the first 2 strategies are the heavy lifters. They do 80% of the work, so it's really powerful to know them anyway, regardless of all the others. So the keep is to determine which words are okay in terms of pulling it in from the actual article, because once we talk about plagiarism with students, sometimes they get so scared and they think, I can't put anything in from the article. And we want to ease that anxiety. We want to talk to students about what words are okay to pull in.
Yeah.
Then the rephrase, and that's just finding synonyms for words, yes, but what we really want is for students and teachers to start to rephrase whole phrases and then whole sentences. Because as we move away from the word to word synonym work, we're getting more into, well, what's another way to say this phrase? Well, what do they mean by this? And it lets the meaning come through rather than just, oh, I could say giant for big, and I can say fast for rapid. That doesn't really help me understand what I'm reading about. So the rephrasing of the phrases and the sentences is the key to that strategy. And then the last one is pulling in a direct quotation, which, you know, is one of my favorite things to do. Help students learn how to pull in phrases and sentences, but weave them into their writing, not have them kind of stick out and be super kind of obvious in the writing. You know, one like that.
I just, yeah, when you read an essay and it's like the very first sentence of like every paragraph is like, in the article, it said this, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And every kid is going to do that at some point as they learn how to do that. But it's so nice to read when the text evidence is integrated into their text. Then it
Yes.
just flows more naturally.
Yeah. So what happens on this page is we have students highlight 4 keywords, and you can see highlighted in yellow, even though the pink is over it. I'm really bummed about our animation. I feel like there's always something that is surprising in Restream.
Is it because you're I guess posting through Restream?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure this out. New challenge to figure out. But
Just
for
add it to your to-do list.
I
It's
know.
fine.
You know what? Here, we're going to switch because I want to show this. I want to go here and I want to share here. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to do the slide the way that it's supposed to be done. So let me go here and do slideshow. Okay, now let's go. Look, there. That's what it's supposed to look like. And then we have 4 key words. And so the words are like the blocks of the writing, right? They are the cornerstones. They are words that we cannot think of other ways to replace, like health, like body parts, like natural, like technology, right? So we're just taking one little section. I forgot to mention that. So we're just taking the second paragraph of this from the article, Replacing Nature is Risky. We blew up the wording so we can see it a little bit better. And then what we're doing is just showcasing how we move through 3 of those strategies: the keep, the rephrase, and the quote. So highlight 4 keywords. Now, it's not always 4. We just did that for this size paragraph just to kind of help students. Another guidepost of like, how many keywords should I highlight? We don't need 18 and we don't just want 1.
Well,
So where do we want to be?
I also think too, when you're teaching this, like you said about, when kids get a little bit nervous about plagiarism, like making them choose words that they have to keep shows them that, like we talked about this before when we did paraphrasing, there are sometimes words that just you cannot replace. We didn't highlight it because it wasn't in this paragraph, or no, it is, but we didn't highlight it. But I think of the word like artificial. That's a hard word to replace. You can use the word fake, but it's, it changes it.
Right.
There's not really another word for technology, right? That means exactly what technology means. And so this, setting these standards, like pick 4 words, shows them that it's okay to use some of the words, right? Like if you borrow 4 words out of this entire essay, you're not going to get pegged for plagiarism.
Right. Exactly. And then highlighting or boxing 2 keywords or 2 phrases would be like ethical and emotional concerns. That one might have been in yellow for some people, but I thought, or students could think of other ways to say ethical and emotional concerns, at least to talk about like, what does it mean, right? So we don't want strategy 1 to be a scapegoat for like, well, I don't know what this means, so I'm just going to highlight it in yellow. So that's why I caution about phrases like ethical and emotional concerns. I want to make sure that students do understand what that means. Even if they keep that in, they put quotation marks around it, they bring it in from the article, that's fine. But I do want to make sure they can rephrase things, especially that are key to understanding the content. So that's one. And then the second is relying too heavily on artificial materials. Can we say that in a different way? So what do we do for strategy 2? We box it in orange, and then sorry, and then we'll come back to that. And then for the one key sentence in the paragraph, I love for students to think on this one, like, what did the author say that I feel like they said it so well I couldn't say it any better. And that's what we want students to kind of look through and find. And so this last sentence is one that just really feels like it's rich, it's powerful. Instead of learning to live carefully and protect our health, we may depend on technology to fix every mistake. And that's just getting at the at a core piece of what this paragraph and this whole article is about, that I or the student felt like could really work in their writing. So let's now see back to the two key phrases. What we want students to do here is think about what's another way I can say ethical and emotional concerns. I could say concerns about what people feel is fair. What's another way to say relying too heavily on artificial materials? Well, I could say depending too much on man-made parts, right? And man-made, it kind of works, but to your point, Tabitha, I think artificial really needs to be in yellow. So that kind of grappling with the different strategies is important too, right? We want students to say, I know I put this in orange, but I really do feel like it's a key word. I need to keep this even this part of what I'm rephrasing, right?
So they should be comfortable making those changes,
right.
halfway through, because it's not a permanent, once it's in yellow, it can't be changed, or in orange.
Exactly. And I think it just shows that they're grappling with it. They're thinking about it. And that's really the ultimate goal, is getting our students to be deeper thinkers, to be more critical thinkers, to really come up with new ways of saying or making connections in the content, because then we know they can write about it clearly. All right, so one other way to say relying too heavily on artificial materials, trusting technology more than biology, right? Or even our body's biology, right? So two great ways. So whether it's one or a couple different ways of saying different phrases, that's the goal of that second strategy. So we've done these three strategies in this particular paragraph. This would be something that we would want to replicate in each of the paragraphs for students to learn these paraphrasing strategies.
Well, and this is another, sorry, I hate to interrupt you. Yeah. This is another really great thing to do on paper with your students. I know when I taught middle school, I always had too many highlighters floating around my room. But this is really great when you print these articles out and have the kids like annotating on the paper. Like shouldn't just be something that you as the teacher are doing at the front of the room. Like your kids should be marking the text. It's so important for them to be making those text to paper connections again.
Love that. And so now that we've kind of gone through paraphrasing and understood what that particular paragraph was, that would be duplicated or replicated throughout all the paragraphs for both articles. Then we want to understand what are the informational and argumentative writing features that we really feel like for the SC Ready are important for students to know how to pull in. So direct quotation is one, pulling in the strategy 6, so you can see it highlighted or written down there at the bottom, right? Then facts and examples. So we define what those both are, and then we've got a little example of what that could look like of pulling in both a fact and then an example of that fact. And then the analysis piece, I mean, this is huge, and there's so much we could do on this. But what we just distilled it down to for the session was basically to say, what does it mean? Like, why did you pull in that direct quotation? Why did you pull in that fact and example? And then think about, why does it matter? Why is it important? Why is this worth remembering? So why is the goal of that analysis piece, because it really gets students to tell more than just the surface level, artificial bones are bad or artificial bones are good. But why is it not okay to trust technology more than biology? What does that mean? Why are you telling me that? Why did you pull that as one of your reasons? So that analysis piece is really critical to help students get out of the literal and get more into the inferential level of thinking on the topic that they're writing.
That made me think too. When I used to teach, I would always, after my students would finish writing an informational argumentative essay, I would always have them choose like 2 highlighter colors, and they would highlight what they took from the text in paraphrase or summarize, and then what they contributed to the essay. And, that color, their commentary should always, outweigh the information that they're pulling in. And so that's a way to take your students' writing even further in the analysis is, are you contributing as much as the article did to the prompt? Oh, I think Amber froze. And she is controlling the slideshow. She may have to edit this part out. Me just talking. Oh, we're still live. I don't have too much to say. Oh no. Well, Amber lost internet. Hold on, let me go to the we're gonna have to edit this.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, because I was sitting here being like, Amber's gonna have to edit this part out with me just talking to the screen. I was trying to find this presentation and couldn't. My brain is so dead right now. You're back. You're back. We're just keeping y'all on your toes. We don't want you to, we don't want you to ever assume that it's gonna go the same way twice.
It's live. What can we say? All right. So let's see. We were.
Did you hear what I said before you lost internet?
I'm sure it was profound. I don't think I did.
Okay. Well, I won't repeat it. Well, I could repeat it. I just said that when I had my students write after they would finish their essay, I would always have them to choose 2 highlighter colors and highlight one in what they pulled from the text and then another color, like what they contributed in their commentary. And that piece should always, be more like have physical space, take up more physical space on the paper. And that's just a way to kind of take their writing even further is that they're writing more of their own contributions than what they're pulling from the text.
Yes, this is very true. And that's what we grow into. Right now it is really balanced between the evidence and the analysis, but you're absolutely right. We want that to be a much longer piece. And I love your highlighting idea. Highlighting for everything.
I love highlighting. I used to have these cups in my classroom just constantly full of highlighters. That was like the one thing every August in school, I would just buy literally 200 highlighters for the year.
Yeah.
Because middle schoolers like to take them apart and dye their hair and their skin, neon yellow. So,
middle schoolers. They're kindergartners in disguise.
Yeah, they are. And it's a really great visual when, because if you tell a 7th grader, okay, I want you to revise this, they're like, yeah, I did that. But once they see it in color and you can be like, well, you really shouldn't have 5 text quotes and 2 sentences of your own.
Right.
It really just puts it into perspective. Like, oh yeah, that's where that analysis piece that you're talking about on the last slide just comes in so much and gives them fuel to write with.
Yeah, for sure. And what you're seeing on this 4-paragraph essay mind design is, when we do argumentative, we have to state our opinion. We have to have 2 reasons. We definitely want evidence. We want that logos appeal. We want to pull from the sources, but then we do need that analysis. What does it mean? Why does it matter? Getting into the explanation part, the deeper thinking part. And then the closing, I know it's cut off a little bit, but it says, tell why your position matters, connect it to a larger theme. And that's really getting students to do even deeper analysis and analysis on a more kind of wider scope to help finish out the piece and make some broader connections. So the sample here is from a middle school student, Kennedy, who wrote about or answered the prompt, right? Wrote about whether or not artificial bones were helping or not. And she said that there really are a problem for 2 reasons. If you look at this paragraph right here that's boxed in the orange, it's following the exact structure that we just showcased in the essay Mind Design, and it's pulling from the paraphrasing strategies that we walked through. And that's really the magic. Once you paraphrase the article and you determine what goes where in terms of your facts and examples and your paraphrases, and then there's many more other writing features that we have, but those are a few that really come into very frequently into argumentative writing, so we wanted to showcase those. Then you can see how it then lends itself to building the essay. So one big issue is that people might start depending too much on man-made parts to stay healthy. In replacing nature is risky, Mia Moran explains there are concerns about what people feel is fair and warns that we may depend on technology to fix every mistake. There's that beautiful direct quotation. This shows that relying too much on machines could make people forget to take care of themselves. And there you have that analysis. Why does it matter? Why is this important? And so it follows again in the second paragraph, second body paragraph. And then we've got a great one sentence opening, two sentence closing, and we're done. We're done with what is a quality response to an on-demand writing. Do we want to grow the length? Of course. But this is a quality one. This would score quite well on the SC Ready, even as is. And that was it. We got through with this. We took a sigh of relief, and we answered some questions about what we just shared. And really, the biggest takeaways for principals and teachers was that, writing with design demystifies what students need to do on their writing assessment. And that's such a huge piece for students to understand. It's like, what am I actually being asked to do? And then to give them some structural components of what to do just helps them know how to transform those blank sheets of paper.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in tonight. It was so great to talk to you about our TDWs in a 3-part series. Who knew? It was not intended to be 3 times. There we go. All right. Well, until next time, have a great writing prompts time experience, all of it. We'll see you soon. Bye.